All right, so listen, we want to welcome you back to the Gateway. It looks a lot different than the last time you were here. So what we're celebrating today is basically we're on the cusp of opening this part of the facility. So this has been a long time in the making, but this is the first major area that's been renovated that we're going to put into use, essentially starting next week. And so we wanted to give everyone a glimpse of this before everyone comes in, and of course then there's privacy and things like that. We'll continue to work around, but we wanted to give you a glimpse before the public comes in. And so, look, right here in this area, first off, as a whole, Gateway, let's remember this is 500,000 square feet as a whole. And this particular building, remember, there's about 500 people who utilize this facility every day. So it is very much in use already. And it's such a huge building that we're obviously working on it and activating it in phases. And so this is a key new phase that we're sharing with you today. And once we open up this space very shortly, we're basically going to have now 100 beds active here that are in addition to the other ones that were already here in the first place and that we're using. So that is sort of new capacity that we're able to deliver on more or less very soon. Now, this particular center does a couple of things. I think most importantly, it's about housing navigation. So we get questions about this all the time. Well, if people need to go somewhere, so then we can fit them with the right kind of housing, whether it's a voucher or supportive housing or job training, all of these things. The idea is you can stay here for a while. It might be a few days, it might be a few weeks, but then true to the name Gateway, we will sort of sort you out with different service providers who are then going to help you sort of integrate into the community, but with housing. And so this is a place where you can go in that in-between period, and again, a place that has been sorely missing. So really, there of course are different private shelters that operate, nonprofits. They're not open 24/7, they're not as integrated. So this is also related in some ways to what we do at the West Side Shelter. This is obviously not 45 minutes outside of town and is not an old jail. This is a beautiful facility. It's constructed with trauma-informed design. It's also had input from literally folks who are experiencing a lack of housing and who are unsheltered. And so it has literally been designed in many ways by the people who will use it. And so that's a wonderful thing, both for staff, but most importantly for the clients who will come through here. Now, this also includes the sort of, in the old-fashioned term, caseworkers. But at the end of the day, it's an engagement center. So you're going to see offices and things like this. That's so, again, these nonprofits can engage with the folks that are experiencing a lack of shelter and find them the help that they actually need. And so this literally creates a space for that to happen so that it doesn't have to happen on the street. That is really the only alternative, or at certain other shelters that aren't as connected as others. So the idea is, as you know, we're building towards essentially a one-stop shop for folks, no matter what challenge you're facing. Eventually we'll be able to provide help for 1,000 people here every day at the Gateway. Now, I do want to mention just one other thing here. There's a lot of nonprofits who are part of this, and I'm just going to kind of whip them off, but I want to let folks know: Central Avila, Western Skies, Vision Sankofa, Goodwill, the New Season Treatment Center, Outreach Court, even our own Animal Welfare, the Tender Love Center, Healing Network, even Fonzie's Barbershop to give haircuts. They're already slated to provide services here, being phased in, but starting as soon as next week. So we're going to give you a tour of this. Carol Pierce, obviously, is our expert, the director of the Triple H department, Health, Housing, and Homelessness. And so with more on this, Carol Pierce.
Great. Thank you. Just welcome. I'm going to make one comment, and then we're going to keep our tour pretty short, 10 minutes, so you can see, and I'll highlight some areas, and then we'll come back here for some more detailed questions. But the first thing I want to say is, if you are unhoused and you are on our streets, you have one thing in common. You have experienced trauma in your life. Maybe as a child, you've lost your home, you've lost a loved one, you've lost your job. The list goes on and on. So this facility was totally developed, as the mayor said, with the input from people who have been on the streets to create that center for healing and hope. So what I think you're going to notice is the lighting, the colors, the openness, because it's created to be that place for healing and hope. And when we often say trauma-informed, that's what that means. So follow me and we'll start this direction. What I want to say, the entrance that you came in for your tour today, that's where our guests will come in the future. And so this is the entrance that if one of our providers in the community, you're being referred, or it's a first responders dropping you off, this is the entrance that you will come in. And why is because this is where we have our staff doing intake and finding out what your needs are. Now, why you didn't come in this entrance today is because our medical sobering, our medical respite, the hammers are flying. As you have on your handout, you'll see those are online very soon, but that's a construction area, so we didn't have you come through there. So follow me and please.
So yeah, I want to highlight here, I know folks who follow this have heard this 100 times, but I'm going to keep saying it. This is a really important space. This is this notion of closing the gap on a 24/7 basis where we can have drop-off. It can be voluntary, but it can also be our responders, like our community safety department. Because again, right now on like a Sunday afternoon, there is literally nowhere where people can go except the emergency room or jail. So this place right here, which is going to open, we think, by the end of the year, once we just finish this entrance, this is going to solve that problem for the first time in our city's history. And this is also a problem that most cities have already solved. This is one area where we were way behind. It's the #1 gap in homelessness and housing services in the state of New Mexico is answered by this building right here. And so you can see the working area is done. Now we just got to get the entrance. And of course it is, you see a little bit more security here, right? You see the glass and so forth. So that's why this particular area is taking a little bit longer.
And Mayor, to add to that, so with the staff, we've got rooms that you'll see that if somebody needed to be here 24 hours until they could get connected to what's next, maybe it's a bed here, maybe it's a provider, maybe it's getting some travel help to get back home. We've got the places both here in this waiting room as well as some other rooms where people can wait.
Okay, now you guys are going to get this digitally, so you can film it, but you'll also get it, if you want a cleaner version. But we want to highlight here, these are the 5 new services that we're looking at for the Gateway that we know we need as a community. And you can see here, 2 of them is really what we're talking about here today, the beginning of housing navigation and also of our engagement center to get people services. And then right here where we are right now is this receiving area, this 24/7 emergency drop-off. And then you see what we're looking at next year with medical sobering and medical respite, which if you peek that way is all torn up and under construction right now. So, and then to orient you, this is the floor plan. There's many floors of this facility. But you can see here, these are the providers that are already here. Remember I mentioned that actually 30% of this facility is already in use. And it's already helping hundreds of people a day. And then you can see down here at the bottom, we're allocating about 40% of this facility for beds, essentially in one way or another, services associated with that in different ways. And then you can see a little bit for caseworkers, management, and nonprofits being about 20%. So you can sort of see how this is coming to life. This area occupied and mostly done. Some of the pieces here. All this area is what we're looking at in the next 18 months. And of course, 2 slices of this is where you're standing right now.
I'm going to add one thing before we go. What the mayor's illustrating, when we talk about wraparound services for somebody who's unhoused, this is critical because this is a one-stop shop that you don't have to go across town. Our providers are coming here, they're connecting. And so that's going to make it easier to get different doors open, to get people served and wrap those services right around them. So let's go ahead and we'll go to our next spot.
You're only supposed to need to stay there 24 hours till we can get you the services. But then the idea is if you end up staying here for several weeks, you move down the hall into a more permanent situation, and that's where Carol's going to take us.
You're obviously here in our dining room, and this is our shared space where we may have different programs, different activities happening. We have a kitchen. Our food will be served here, and again, trying to create that community feeling. People have access to beverages, they've got sinks, etc. When you're really trying to feel good and change your life, one of the key things is having clean clothes. We've got a washer and dryer right around the corner, and people will be accessing that. If we look here to the left, what we've got is the computer station. So often people do need the access to a computer for a resume builder, or to maybe look up a resource, or maybe they've been meeting with their case manager and they said, hey, get on the computer and really research this. And so we've got those accessible. The internet will be provided for people to use those computers. So next stop, follow me. So this is our sleeping area. So what you can see is we've allowed people the privacy to create their own space. And if you want to take a look in here, we've staged this one so you can really see people will make it their own. They will hang their hats, they will put their pictures, they will have their pets here. Pets are part of the process. That's being low barrier. You hear us use those words all the time. And so people will have all their individual space for sleeping. They've got an individual light and a plug-in for anything they need electronic. So again, a total of 50 beds. This is one of the spaces, and there's other spaces here as well that look just like these. We've got a privacy screen as well, and we're very aware that with this privacy screen, and people may use this just so they have privacy, but the way this is designed, when you're laying in bed, you actually have no line of sight. This is where our staff, 24/7, glassed in, available, just to be available if any of our guests needed any help day or night. All right, next stop is in our bathroom. We heard the voices of people who had unhoused experience. So this is one example where people have access to put their things, get ready for the day if they're going out for a job interview or going to an appointment. Oftentimes it may be you're brushing your teeth and then you're keeping that area for yourself. This is a spacious area to give people what they need to get ready for the day. Also, the way we've designed the showers, where people have a place to hang their towel, there's dressing area and enough space in there for dressing. And then the toilets as well, and sinks. Our next stop is the engagement center. The whole Gateway Center is the engagement center. And that hallway we just saw, we have a total of 9 locations. And you heard the mayor say and name a lot of different nonprofits and community agencies who will be coming on a scheduled basis to provide services to our guests that are here. So part of what's really important is that wraparound, that you can access not only the haircut or getting your identification replaced. And one of our community providers will be doing that. So guests that are staying there, that are in the sleeping area, they will be accessing all kinds of providers in these offices. If you notice, there's also an outside door here, because we imagine that once this is roughly a 90-day experience. And that's from our experience in other programs that the city operates and other nonprofit providers operate. That's really what it takes to navigate what you need to really give you the wraparound services, ultimately to get housed in a setting that works for you. We imagine that there will be people that want to come back and touch base with one of our providers. And so there will be the ability for people to come back into this space, set up an appointment, and to be seen here from the community. What we call housing navigation. And you notice we don't use the word shelter. This is not just a one-stop shop. It is a one-stop shop, but it's to wrap around all the services you need. Thus, it's a navigation place to get you connected to the multiple points of connection that you may need. You just saw the engagement center. You saw the receiving area that will be coming online, our first stop, and then the hammers flying right now on medical sobering and medical respite. And this as a whole is our Gateway Center. So questions from your tour, we welcome them. Right.
So there's current residents here right now?
Yes, we have about 35 guests here that are partaking in the program, and then they'll be moving up to this space as the final touches are done.
Men and women?
These are women right now, and then we'll be using that space for other guests to continue the program, and likely men.
And then the place we toured, how many beds, and then how many total are we up to? Is it 100 beds?
It'll be up to 100. This is an additional 50 beds. This is single gender, and then with what the other spaces we have, it's up to about 100.
And so the space we toured will just be
one gender.
We don't know yet, though.
Well, women.
So that will be, so it'll be 100 just women starting off here?
starting off with these additional 50 beds.
We'll see. Like it depends on the needs and so forth. So we're going to start with the 50 women here,
Yeah.
but that may change. We'll just see what we need. We're going to use every bed we've got.
But
Now we've got 100.
But we're starting with 50 women
Yeah.
and then moving up to 100 capacity, and then we'll see.
Got it.
Yeah, thanks.
And in terms of families, kind of how would that?
Well, families right now we have at our Family Housing Navigation Center, and the city's been doing that service in partnership with many of our community agencies since October, the fall of October. In that program alone, we have housed over 1,000 people. Half of those are children. So that program is happening right now. And I'm glad you asked that because the Gateway, while it's central to what we're doing here in Albuquerque, we are a system of care with our nonprofit providers, the Housing Navigation Center for Families here, and many other agencies in town. It's a system that lifts up our unhoused neighbors to get them to what's next.
So just to kind of circle back on this question right now, you said there's about 30 women at the moment?
We have about 30. We'll have 50 here in this space. Yes.
And then in terms of when do you expect to have men?
That's following in the space very soon.
Early fall.
Yeah.
And I just want to remember the beds, right? There's already, this is a huge facility. There are already hundreds of beds in use here for behavioral health and all sorts of situations. I think we estimate it's roughly around 400 beds. We're adding another 100. This gets us to 500. So that's the total bed number.
Yeah.
We're just telling you about this particular module.
Yeah, and that's important to reference this because if you look at our 3 accredited hospitals that are part of that wraparound, that's the beds that the mayor is also.
So you might spend like a couple of nights here and then just go down the hall to Turquoise Lodge. Like that's the whole idea.
Please.
Since overnight beds were open in the Gateway Center, how many people have stayed? And of those, how many have moved into permanent housing?
I don't have that number right with me. I think we've seen about 150 roughly off the top of my head since we've opened to have guests. And I don't have all the data on the next steps for those wraparound services.
But
Oh, Katie's reminding me. So what we are doing is case collaboration. So when we talked about this being really a 90-day model that's based on our experience at the Family Housing Navigation Center, that's what it has taken to get those 1,000 families housed and to connect them with services. And so I'm being reminded, we do case collaboration now. So what that means is different service providers come in on a weekly basis and we talk about what are Carol's needs. She needs to get that ID. Wait, she needs to get reconnected here. She needs to get health insurance. What kind of housing? So that's our case collaboration where we work with the system of providers. That happens on a weekly basis here. It happens on a weekly basis over at our Family Housing Navigation Center.
we have seen about 93 women since January.
Okay, thanks, Kate.
Say that again?
93 women since January.
93
And-
women since
Right,
January?
and 92 men during the winter period. So we're up. we
So it's
shut
over
185.
150, like I
Yeah,
said.
185 people kind of in January, but yeah.
So remember, the city actually doesn't operate these. We partner and contract with nonprofits, right? The city's role is building this facility, designing it, setting up that system. But those entities run it. This is also why when you ask for numbers, like, because you have to ask like 4 different nonprofits,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
figure it out.
And then of course, you mentioned phases a little bit earlier. Kind of what phase is this at the moment? It was part of kind of different phases. Kind of
Mhm.
when do we expect to have the full facility open?
So there's groupings with respect to the construction and the financing that we have, and so this is actually phase 1 and 2 of the first 5.
Yeah.
And then there'll be actually a whole other batch after that. But we know we have the construction plan and the funding and all the details in terms of how it's going to get done for the first 5 phases. And so this is actually 1 and 2
Yeah,
of
on
those
this.
first 5. And that next one, the third phase, is going to be that emergency 24/7 drop off, which we expect by the end of the year.
The 150 or so people that have come through, have they had access to that 90-day program that you're talking about, or are some of those things still coming online?
No, with our current women that we have, that's being implemented. That's with that weekly housing navigation. So when we first opened up beds, because it was winter to men and women, it was to keep people safe and to get them connected. So as we have evolved over the last few months, our 90-day program is what's really happening with the women currently here.
And so that's just recently started, this 90-day program.
Yeah, within the last month or two.
I asked you about the monthly meetings you're doing with the neighborhoods
Yeah.
around here. I know that's appreciated by a lot of the
Yeah.
neighbors. What was communicated in the last one about the data that you said, they said that only about 4% of the people have transitioned coming through here into permanent housing. Is that a number you're familiar with?
Not familiar with that number, so I think, no. I'm not sure where they're getting that from. So I think
It
what
was
we.
a system analyst at the last meeting here on July 27th that said that 4% of the people coming
Okay.
through here are
Okay.
transitioning into permanent
So
housing.
I imagine where that's coming from. So remember, when the city said there's a need, it's winter, we need to keep people safe. We opened up beds for men and women to get off the street. That doesn't include necessarily that intensive weekly navigation. So if the whole of the 150 plus of men and women were looking at that, it wasn't intensive resource. It was what I would call shelter, keeping people safe. Now, as we've just been getting our engines going with our nonprofit providers in the last month or so, in that 90-day program, not in this space, that's probably where that 4% is coming from.
Gotcha.
So, and over time, we have all the confidence it will be just like our family housing navigation center and other models in town to really, we are up to, we heard it yesterday, I think 50% or more of the people a part of family housing navigation are housed. And we've seen that start low and ramp up, and I expect the same thing here. Thank you for helping me clarify. Yes.
So you mentioned these emergency beds that were
Oh.
offered over the winter. Is there an idea of offering them during the summer, given the extreme heat
Yeah.
we've been seeing, or is that a program that could happen again next winter?
Well, what we're really doing, we're getting all the beds open to help people who are unhoused. So I would say what we're doing this summer, we've done our cooling stations and with water, cooling cloths and sunscreen. But ultimately, you have to know, as the mayor's saying, we have a lot of access to beds here, and we're using those beds to help meet community needs. So when we say we're getting up to 100, we're moving toward that 90-day program. So if we weren't quite ready with all the resources, might we use it for an emergency need? You bet.
We will use any bed if we need it. That includes community centers, that includes the West Side Shelter, that includes churches, and our emergency operations department has plans for all of that.
And then can you delve a little bit more into the wraparound services
Yes.
you mentioned over there, kind of IDs, haircuts, kind of
Yes.
what else can guests?
Oh, thank you for that question. So, for example, right behind you, we've got some desks there and chairs. We will use peer workers. And peer workers are people with lived experience who have been there. And they can be some of the most effective people connecting with somebody unhoused. That begins part of the wraparound and the connection. So wraparound, we will have a housing navigator. They will be in that engagement center. We will have case managers. They will be in that engagement center. And then what we've done through our conversations with the community as well as people with lived experience, we're adding different services. Workforce Solutions is a great partner. They're wanting to help us with assessing job skills and helping with resume building. Thus, we've got computers. We have a barber we have a couple barbers actually that want to give the time and the service. We've been working with, let me get my list
So
here.
there's a great list, because the staff did a great job. So let me just read to you
Okay.
what will be provided. Spanish and English language Medicaid and Medicare and SNAP signups, financial literacy, ID replacement, opioid treatment, court diversion, spay, neuter, vaccines, microchips, skill classes, peer support services, employment navigation, continuing education, and haircuts.
And what I want to add to the mayor is that's the beginning, it's not the end. So some people will be there permanently, probably 3 of those 9 spaces, but 6 of those people say, I'm going to be there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we're going to connect. But what we're going to do is we have our guests, we're going to find out, we need X kind of service, and then we will bring that in from a nonprofit. So this is just the beginning, this is not the end.
And I think we have time, sorry, for one more question with Mayor and Director Pierce today, but Katie, we're happy to work with you on any follow-up questions.
Just the last one I have is zooming out. How should people feel about the progress that we have seen? You know, this has been a long time coming. People see the problems on almost every street corner around town. How should they feel about this milestone and where we're headed?
So this is a concrete demonstration of our commitment to this project. And it shows that there's hope for our city dealing with this big issue. And I think it also shows like this administration does not quit. You know, we tried it one place, they didn't want it. Other people didn't want it here, there's asbestos. We are going to do this because it's the right thing for our city, it's what the voters voted on. And so we're able finally, to really start delivering on that commitment.
And on that hope, I think as a community member and a part of the city team, not only the hope, we are filling critical gaps in our community in this system of care. So it should give people hope and know that this is the beginning to see much more.